The arrival. The sky above New York City turned dark as a massive shadow covered the streets. People looked up, their eyes widening in shock. A giant spaceship hovered above the city, blocking the sun. It was smooth, black, and silent. No sound, no lights, just a terrifying presence in the sky. Then, a deep hum filled the air. The ship began to descend, coming closer to the ground. Panic spread through the crowd. People ran, cars stopped, and news channels rushed to capture the moment. Inside the White House, alarms blared. The president and his advisors stared at the live footage. "This isn't a normal alien sighting," one of the generals said. "This is something else." In Times Square, a large circular platform on the spaceship's underside slowly opened. A long, glowing ramp extended down to the ground. The crowd held their breath. Then she stepped out. An 8-foot-tall alien woman emerged from the ship. Her skin was dark blue, her silver armor shining under the city lights. She had sharp, glowing red eyes, and her expression was calm. Too calm. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't impressed. She looked at the humans as if they were nothing. The soldiers surrounding the area gripped their weapons tightly, but none dared to shoot. The alien woman walked down the ramp, her steps slow and powerful. Each movement sent a silent message. She was in control. She reached the bottom of the ramp and stood in the middle of Times Square. Thousands of eyes were on her. News cameras zoomed in. People watching from their homes leaned closer to their screens. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep, strong, and completely clear, as if she had spoken English her whole life. "I am General Xyra of the Catharian Empire." The crowd remained silent. The name meant nothing to them, but the way she said it sent chills down their spines. She continued, "I come not for war, not for peace. I come for a challenge." A murmur spread through the crowd. A challenge? What did she mean? Xyra took another step forward. "Earth's greatest warrior must face me in battle." The words hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud. People looked at each other, confused and afraid. Soldiers exchanged nervous glances. The president's voice came through the military radios. "Find out what she wants. Do not attack unless necessary." A high-ranking general stepped forward cautiously. "Why do you seek a fight?" Xyra's red eyes locked onto him. "Your species wishes to join the stars, to prove itself. The Catharian Empire does not respect weaklings." She raised her chin slightly, her voice unwavering. "If your warrior defeats me, Earth will earn our respect. If your warrior loses, Earth will bow." The crowd gasped. News reporters struggled to find words. This wasn't just a fight. It was a test for the entire planet. Military commanders spoke quickly over radios, debating what to do. No one wanted war, but refusing the challenge might make things worse. The general spoke again, his voice careful. "And if we refuse?" Xyra's lips curled into the slightest smirk. "Then Earth admits it is weak, and the weak do not get a choice." Silence. The soldiers gripped their guns tighter. Some civilians stepped back, fear in their eyes. Others looked around, waiting for someone, anyone, to speak up. Then, out of the crowd, a voice rose. "I'll fight you." Every head turned toward the sound. A man stepped forward. He wasn't in armor. He wasn't a soldier. Just a man in a simple black jacket, hands in his pockets, walking toward the alien general as if she was just another person. The crowd made way for him. Cameras focused on his face. He stopped a few feet away from Xyra and looked up at her. She towered over him, her expression unreadable. He smirked. "You want Earth's strongest. You got him." For the first time, Xyra's eyes flickered with something new. Interest. The world held its breath. Who was he? And why wasn't he afraid? The challenge. The world was still reeling from the shock. A lone human had stepped forward. No hesitation. No fear. He had met the gaze of an 8-foot alien warrior, as if it was just another day. News channels scrambled to identify him. Social media exploded with theories. Some called him a fool, others a hero. But the truth was, nobody knew his name, until now. The man adjusted his jacket, standing his ground in front of Tara. His stance was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't bluffing. Name? Tara asked, her voice steady but curious. Daniel Carter, he said, former Marine. The way he said it made something stir in the watching crowd. He wasn't just another soldier. He had the air of someone who had seen war and walked away from it, changed but unbroken. Tara tilted her head slightly. Former, you are no longer a warrior. Daniel shrugged. I don't need a title to know what I am. A low hum filled the air. For the first time, Zyra seemed to study him. Her red eyes scanned his body, not just his muscles, but the way he carried himself. Confidence without arrogance, strength without boasting. It was rare and interesting. She took a step forward, towering over him. You are small. Daniel smirked. And you talk a lot. The tension in the air shifted. The crowd murmured. The military personnel monitoring the situation stiffened. Was this man insane? Was he provoking her on purpose? Thyra's lips curled slightly. Was that amusement? You are different from your kind, she said. Daniel crossed his arms. You have no idea. The world reacts. Back in Washington, the president sat in the Situation Room, watching the live feed with tight lips. Who is this guy? He asked. One of the intelligence officers quickly pulled up a file. Daniel Carter, age 34, ex-Marine, served in multiple combat zones, honorable discharge, no criminal record, no official ties to the government or military anymore. A general frowned. Then why is he the one stepping up? Where's our best? Another officer hesitated. The truth is, we don't know if our best can even take her. The room fell silent. That was the real problem. No one knew what Zyra was fully capable of. But Daniel Carter had stepped up anyway. Why? The terms of the fight. In Times Square, Daniel stood his ground as Zyra finally spoke again. You are either brave or foolish. Daniel smirked. Let's find out. Zyra turned her gaze to the watching soldiers and cameras. The battle will take place in 24 hours. Neutral ground. No weapons. Hand-to-hand combat only. The outcome will decide the fate of your world. The crowd gasped. 24 hours. That wasn't enough time to prepare. A general stepped forward. That's not how we do things here. Zyra's expression remained cold. This is not a negotiation. She turned back to Daniel. You will fight, and you will lose. Daniel only grinned. We'll see. Without another word, Zyra stepped back, pressing something on her wrist. The air shimmered around her, and in an instant, she vanished, teleporting back to her ship. The challenge had been issued, and there was no turning back. Preparing for battle. The moment Zyra disappeared, chaos erupted. Reporters shouted into cameras. Analysts debated whether Daniel stood a chance. Military strategists argued about what to do if he lost. Meanwhile, Daniel walked away from the scene like he had just finished a casual conversation. As he left, a voice called out, Carter. Daniel turned to see an old friend, Captain Marcus Hale, a high-ranking military officer, one of the best. What the hell are you doing? Marcus hissed, grabbing Daniel's arm. Daniel sighed. What does it look like? I'm fighting her. Do you even know what you're up against? Daniel's expression darkened. I know enough. Marcus shook his head. She's not just strong, Carter. Her people, her species, they don't lose. We've heard rumors about them. They don't just conquer planets. They break warriors, and they enjoy it. Daniel didn't flinch. Then I'll be the first they can't break. Marcus exhaled sharply. You always were stubborn. Daniel smirked. And you always worried too much. Marcus hesitated, then sighed. Just promise me one thing. If it gets bad, don't let your pride kill you. Daniel's grin faded. For a moment, he was silent. Then he gave a slow nod. I promise. The night before, as the world held its breath, Daniel prepared. No high-tech weapons, no armor, just him and his training. He spent the night alone, pushing his body to the limit, testing his reflexes, running battle simulations in his mind, studying, thinking, preparing. He knew one thing for sure: Zyra wasn't going to hold back. But neither was he. As dawn approached, he stood on the rooftop of his small apartment, looking out over the city. The fight was only hours away. And for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. Tomorrow, he would face an alien warrior stronger than anything Earth had ever seen, and he would either prove humanity's worth or fall trying. The fight begins. The world had never felt this quiet before. From the bustling streets of New York to the war rooms in Washington, every eye was on one place, a hidden military base in the Nevada desert. The Catharian Empire had accepted Earth's request for a neutral battleground, and this base, isolated, heavily secured, and far from civilians, was chosen for the event. A massive arena had been prepared. No weapons, no tricks, just two warriors facing off under the harsh desert sun. On one side stood General Zyra, 8 feet tall, her body clad in sleek battle armor that shimmered in the light. Her red eyes burned with confidence. She had fought hundreds of battles, won every single one. And today would be no different. On the other side, Daniel Carter, former Marine, stood with his fists clenched. No armor, no advanced technology, just a man and his will. And yet, he didn't look afraid. The tension before the battle. Inside the base, the highest-ranking military leaders, scientists, and political figures watched through reinforced glass. The president himself stood at the front, arms crossed. "Does he stand a chance?" he asked. A scientist shook his head. Physically, no. Catharians are faster, stronger, and biologically superior in every way. A general sighed. Then why is he so calm? No one had an answer. Meanwhile, social media was exploding. Live streams, hashtags, debates. Some people believed in Daniel. Others had already accepted defeat. Some were even praying, whispering that this was the end of Earth's independence. The final moments before combat. Zyra stared down at Daniel, arms crossed. "You still have time to surrender, human." Daniel rolled his shoulders, cracking his neck. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing to you." A low chuckle came from Zyra. "Arrogance. I will enjoy breaking you." A deep metallic gong echoed through the arena. The battle had begun. The first attack. Zyra moved first. Fast. Too fast for the human eye. 1 second, she was standing still. The next, she was right in front of Daniel, her fist tearing through the air like a missile. Boom. Daniel barely dodged in time. A crater formed where he had been standing. The impact sent a shockwave across the arena, dust and sand flying in all directions. The world gasped. If that had hit him, the fight would have been over. But Daniel didn't freeze. He didn't hesitate. He moved. His instincts took over. His body reacted before his mind could process the danger. Years of combat training, muscle memory, and battlefield experience kicked in. He twisted his body, dodging another devastating strike. Then he struck back. A lightning-fast jab to her ribs. A testing strike, meant to gauge her reaction. It connected. And Zyra stumbled. It wasn't much. A slight shift in her stance. A fraction of a second where her balance was off. But it was enough. Daniel grinned. "Ha, you're not invincible after all." Zyra's expression darkened. "You are fast. That will not save you." The fight escalates. Zyra came at him again, this time even faster. Daniel barely dodged, rolling to the side, feeling the wind of her strike graze his skin. She wasn't just strong. She was a living weapon. Daniel had fought trained killers before, but this was different. Zaira didn't waste movements. She didn't hesitate. Her body was a machine of destruction, built for war. Yet, as the fight continued, Daniel realized something. She was predictable. Her movements followed a pattern, straightforward, direct, powerful, but not adaptable. And Daniel was adaptable. The turning point. The fight raged on. Zaira attacked. Daniel dodged. She struck harder. He moved faster. Minutes passed. The alien audience watching from orbit grew restless. Why hadn't this human fallen yet? Why was he still standing? Zaira herself was beginning to realize it. This was not how battles usually went. Her enemies broke quickly. They couldn't keep up. They couldn't think fast enough. But Daniel was different. He was learning. With every dodge, every counter, every second that passed, he was figuring her out. The first real hit. Then, in a blur of motion, Daniel saw his opening. Zaira overextended, expecting him to retreat. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped in, closer than she expected, and drove his fist right into her jaw. The impact echoed through the arena. Zaira stumbled back. For the first time in her life, she was hit. The world froze. The military officers watching leaned forward in disbelief. The Catharian soldiers watching from orbit gasped. Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow. "Told you. You talk too much." Zaira touched her jaw, eyes burning. She exhaled sharply, not in anger, but in amusement. Then she grinned, a wide, dangerous grin. Interesting. She straightened up. Her body language changed. The air around her seemed to hum with energy. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Something was different. Then she spoke. "I was going easy on you." Her armor began to shift, glowing red-hot. The ground beneath her cracked. She had only been using a fraction of her power. The real fight was about to begin. The unexpected twist. The desert air grew heavy. The ground beneath Zaira cracked, thin lines of heat pulsing through the stone. Daniel could feel it. Something had changed. Before, she had been fast. Before, she had been powerful. But now she was something else entirely. She rolled her shoulders, her silver armor shifting like liquid metal, glowing with deep red energy. Her eyes, once cold and calculating, now burned with excitement. She was done playing. Daniel exhaled slowly, flexing his fingers. His knuckles were scraped, his breathing a little heavier. He had managed to hit her. That was a victory in itself. But now the real fight was about to begin. A terrifying power. Zaira didn't speak. She didn't need to. She moved. Before, she had been fast. Now she was lightning. 1 second she was standing still. The next, she was right in front of him. Daniel barely had time to react. He twisted his body, dodging. But she anticipated it. Her elbow slammed into his ribs. Crikey! Pain exploded through Daniel's body as he was launched across the arena. He hit the ground hard, rolling before coming to a stop. For a second, everything was blurry. The taste of iron filled his mouth. His breath came in short gasps. He had fought strong opponents before. He had taken hits before. But this was like getting hit by a freight train. In the control room, the military officers watching winced. The president tightened his jaw. "He can't take much more of that," someone muttered. In orbit, the Catharian soldiers watching the battle let out cheers of approval. Finally, their general was showing this human his place. But on the battlefield, Daniel Carter wasn't done yet. Getting back up. Slowly, painfully, Daniel pushed himself to his feet. His ribs screamed in protest, but he ignored them. Zaira tilted her head. Still standing. Daniel spat blood onto the sand and rolled his shoulders. Was that supposed to hurt? She smiled, a sharp, predatory smile. Let's see how long that attitude lasts. She was on him again, faster than a human could process. Daniel dodged left. Her fist tore through the air beside him. He ducked. Her knee barely missed his face. She was fast. Too fast. But Daniel wasn't just fast. He was smart. He was adapting. The mind of a warrior. Daniel wasn't the strongest fighter in the world. He wasn't the fastest. But he was something else. He was a survivor. And survivors didn't fight by strength alone. They fought with their minds. Each time Kyra attacked, he saw more. Tiny details, small openings, patterns. She was fast, but she had habits. Her left hand twitched just before she punched. Her stance shifted slightly before she kicked. To someone else, they were meaningless. To Daniel, they were the key to survival. The turning point. Kyra came in again, her fists burning with raw energy. She threw a right hook. Daniel dodged left. She followed with a knee strike. Daniel stepped back. She twisted for a spinning kick, the same move she had used before. Daniel saw it coming. And this time, he didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped into her space. The move caught Kyra off guard. Her kick missed by inches. She was too close now, too close to use her full power. And Daniel struck, a brutal uppercut right to her jaw. Crikey! Kyra's head snapped back. Her stance wobbled for half a second. And in a battle like this, half a second was an eternity. Daniel didn't stop. He slammed his fist into her ribs. Once, twice, 3 times. For the first time, Kyra stumbled. The alien crowd watching from orbit fell silent. The military personnel watching from the base leaned forward. Was this real? Was he actually landing hits? Kyra growled lowly, her body shaking. Her red eyes burned with something new. Not anger. Not frustration. Excitement. The shift in the battle. She straightened, rolling her neck. Blood. Dark, blue, alien blood dripped from her lip. She wiped it away with the back of her hand, looking at Daniel with newfound respect. You are learning, she admitted. Daniel smirked. That's what humans do. Kyra exhaled sharply, something between a laugh and a growl. Then she did something unexpected. She removed her armor. The metal plating fell to the ground, kicking up dust. Daniel frowned, getting tired already. Kyra flexed her muscles. No, I just don't need it anymore. The air shimmered around her as the energy inside her body began to radiate outward. The ground cracked beneath her feet. The temperature rose instantly. And for the first time since this fight began, Daniel felt true danger. The moment of truth. In the control room, alarms blared. Scientists scrambled, trying to measure the energy output from Kyra's body. Sir, one of them stammered. She was holding back. A lot. The president's expression darkened. How much more power does she have? The scientist swallowed hard. We don't know. But if she was using 10% before, she's at 50 now. Silence. Then, get me an evacuation plan. Now. The final exchange. Kyra crouched slightly, energy crackling around her hands. Daniel exhaled, rolling his shoulders. His body was aching. His ribs throbbed. His lungs burned. But he wasn't backing down. He couldn't. This was humanity's moment. Kyra exploded forward like a meteor. Daniel braced himself. The real fight had just begun. The revelation. The desert floor cracked under Kyra's feet as she launched forward. The force of her movement sent a shockwave through the air, sand and dust blasting outward in a violent burst. Daniel barely had time to react. His instincts screamed, "Move!" He twisted his body just as Kyra's fist slammed into the space where he had been standing. The impact split the ground open, sending jagged fractures through the rock. Daniel rolled, recovering fast. But Kyra was already on him. Her next strike came like a thunderclap. Daniel threw up his arms in a desperate block. The impact sent him skidding backward, his feet digging trenches into the sand. His bones rattled, his muscles screamed in protest, but he didn't go down. Not yet. Zyra grinned, still standing. Daniel exhaled through gritted teeth. Gonna take more than that. Her grin widened. Good. Let's see how much more. The change in strategy. Zyra came at him again, her attacks like lightning. Fast, brutal, relentless. But this time, Daniel wasn't just dodging. He was watching, learning. Every strike she threw, every step she took, there was a pattern. Strength without adaptability. Speed without unpredictability. Daniel wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest. But he was the smartest fighter in the arena. And that was enough. The first real counterattack. Zyra threw another devastating punch. But instead of dodging, Daniel stepped into it. It was risky. Suicidal, even. But it worked. He caught her wrist with both hands, using her own momentum against her. Then, a brutal knee to her ribs. Crack cake. Zyra's eyes widened in shock. She staggered, but Daniel wasn't done. He twisted her arm and drove an elbow into her shoulder. The impact sent her off balance. For the first time since the fight started, Zyra was vulnerable. And Daniel didn't waste it. He delivered a spinning kick to her head. The force sent the towering alien warrior stumbling backward, sand flying into the air. The entire world watching went silent. In the control room, a stunned general muttered, "He's actually hitting her." In orbit, the Catharian soldiers who had been watching in amusement weren't laughing anymore. Zyra's realization. Zyra wiped blood from her mouth. Daniel stood across from her, breathing heavily, sweat dripping from his brow. His body ached. His ribs screamed in pain. But his eyes burned with defiance. Zyra let out a low, sharp breath. She had fought countless warriors across the galaxy. None of them had done this. None had adapted this fast. None had endured this long. None had challenged her like this. Zyra took a step forward, then stopped. For the first time in the fight, she hesitated. And in that hesitation, she understood. Humans weren't the strongest species. They weren't the fastest, but they were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. And that made them unpredictable. Her respect for Daniel Carter doubled. "I see it now," she said, voice calm. "Why your species is different." Daniel wiped sweat from his face. "That right?" She nodded. "You don't fight like the others. You don't fight with power alone. You fight with your mind, with adaptability." She exhaled slowly, shaking her head in something close to admiration. "No wonder your kind survived this long." The Empire watches. In the control room, the scientists monitoring Zyra's vitals froze. "Sir," one of them whispered, "her heart rate has changed." The president frowned. "What do you mean?" The scientist swallowed. "She's not fighting to kill anymore." The room fell silent. She was testing him. Not destroying. Not crushing. Testing. The final decision. Zyra lowered her hand slightly, studying Daniel. "You are not like the others I have fought. You are worthy." Daniel let out a short breath. "Does that mean we're done here?" Sarah considered him for a long moment. Then, in a single smooth motion, she knelt. The world froze. In orbit, the Catharian soldiers watching the battle gasped. The strongest warrior of their empire, kneeling before a human. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" Zyra met his gaze, her expression steady. "Respect. You have earned it." She rose back to her full height, her voice carrying across the arena. "Earth is not weak. You do not bow. You fight. You endure. And because of that," she turned to the watching cameras, "the Catharian Empire will recognize you as equals." The arena erupted into chaos. In the control room, the president let out a slow, relieved breath. On Earth, millions of people cheered. Because at that moment, humanity had done something incredible. They had not just survived. They had earned the respect of the stars. Aftermath. As the battle ended, Daniel sat down in the sand, exhaling hard. Zyra looked at him, tilting her head. "You are injured." Daniel chuckled, rubbing his sore ribs. "Yeah, you hit like a truck." She nodded. "And yet, you still stood." A long pause. Then, surprisingly, she held out a hand. Daniel looked at it, then grinned, and he shook it. The final battle. The world had already declared it a victory. News channels were calling Daniel Carter a legend. The internet was flooded with celebrations, memes, and emotional reactions. The first human to defeat an alien warlord in combat. But the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Because Zyra wasn't done. And neither was Daniel. The moment of truth. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, his body aching, every muscle burning. His ribs were bruised, possibly broken, but he was still standing. Across from him, Zyra was smiling. Not a smirk, not arrogance. A genuine, thrilled smile. She had never enjoyed a fight this much. Her kind, the Catharian Empire, had spent centuries testing warriors across the galaxy. They had fought species bigger, stronger, faster. But this human was different. He wasn't stronger. He wasn't faster. He was relentless. And that was more dangerous than any raw strength. The Empire watches. In orbit, thousands of Catharian warriors watched in stunned silence. Their leader, General Zyra, undefeated champion of the Empire, had acknowledged a human as her equal. But among them, the high command of the Catharian Empire was watching too. And they weren't satisfied. Inside the Catharian flagship, a council of warlords debated furiously. "This is unacceptable," one growled. "She was supposed to break him, not kneel before him." Another scoffed. "Perhaps we have underestimated this species." A third, older warlord narrowed his eyes. "No, she is holding back. She still has power she has not used." The room fell silent. Then the warlord activated a private communication link to Zyra's personal comm. His voice was low, commanding. "End this battle. Prove the Empire's strength. Show this human your true power." Zyra heard the message in her earpiece. She exhaled slowly, her fists clenching at her sides. Then she looked at Daniel. She didn't want to do it, but she had no choice. The Empire was watching. And if she refused, they would send others. So she made a decision. Her body tensed. The energy surrounding her began to change. And Daniel, who had survived everything she had thrown at him so far, felt fear for the first time. Zyra's true power. The sky above them darkened. The sand beneath their feet began to tremble. Zyra closed her eyes for a brief moment. When she opened them again, they were no longer red. They were white-hot, glowing like twin suns. A low hum filled the air, like an approaching storm. Then, boom! An invisible force erupted from Zyra's body, blasting outward in all directions. The watching military officers stumbled back, shielding their eyes. The cameras glitched, struggling to process the energy readings. In orbit, the Catharian warriors sat up straighter. Now, this was their general. Zyra rolled her shoulders, exhaling. When she spoke, her voice carried a new weight. "You have earned my respect, Daniel Carter." She raised her fists. "But this fight is not over." Daniel, still catching his breath, frowned. "Oh, come on. I thought we were having a moment here." Zyra smirked. "Moments are for the weak. This is war." Then she moved. And for the first time, Daniel was too slow. A fight beyond limits. Daniel barely saw the strike before it landed. Zyra's fist slammed into his stomach, sending him flying. The air rushed out of his lungs. His body skidded across the sand, rolling violently before coming to a stop. Pain. Everywhere. Daniel coughed, spitting blood onto the ground. She had hit him before, but not like this. Not with her full power. His ears rang. His vision blurred. He could hear the distant shouts of military commanders, the frantic voices of scientists. They were watching him lose. And for the first time, he felt doubt. The will to stand. Zaira walked toward him slowly, watching as he struggled to push himself up. She could end it now. One more hit, and it would be over. But as she looked at Daniel, something inside her whispered a warning. Not yet. Because even now, even with his body battered and broken, he was still trying to get up. Humans were weak. Humans were fragile. But they had something that no other species did. A refusal to surrender. A willpower that defied all logic. Daniel planted his hands on the sand, pushing himself up onto one knee. His body shook. His vision swam, but he refused to fall. And when he looked up at her, he was smiling. Blood on his lips, sweat dripping down his face, ribs aching with every breath. But he was smiling. And Zaira, undefeated warrior of the Catharian Empire, felt something she had never felt before. Not fear, not anger, but admiration. The final blow. Zaira exhaled, shaking her head. You are insane, Daniel Carter. Daniel coughed. You should see me on a good day. A small chuckle escaped her lips. Then she made her choice. Instead of another crushing blow, she took a single step forward and extended her hand. Daniel blinked. What? Her voice was steady. You've already won. The world held its breath. In the control room, the president slowly stood. The military officers stared at the screen, frozen. Daniel, still on his knees, looked at her hand. This was it. The war, the challenge, the test. And he had passed. With a slow, aching motion, he reached up and shook her hand. The crowd watching erupted. The military base filled with cheers. The internet exploded. Because at that moment, everything changed. Earth had won something far more valuable than victory. They had earned the respect of the stars. And Daniel Carter, he had just become the most dangerous human alive. A new future. As the dust settled, Zaira helped Daniel to his feet. He groaned. So, we good. Zaira smirked. We are better than good, human. We are allies now. The Catharian Empire would not conquer Earth. Instead, they would protect it. Because they had seen what humans were truly capable of. And they had no intention of making an enemy of them. The aftermath. The battle was over. The world had watched as Daniel Carter, a single human, had stood against a warrior from the stars and did not fall. But victory was never just about the fight. It was about what came next. The silence after war. The arena was still. The dust had settled. The ground was cracked and scorched from Zaira's power. Daniel stood in the center, his body battered and bruised, his muscles screaming in pain. But he was standing. And across from him, Zaira stood too, not as a conqueror, not as an enemy, but as an ally. She had offered her hand, and Daniel had shaken it. At that moment, everything changed. In orbit, the Catharian High Command watched in stunned silence. Their greatest warrior, the undefeated general, had recognized a human as her equal. In Washington, military officers sat frozen in the control room, staring at the screen. The president let out a slow breath. We just avoided war. A general nodded and gained something bigger. The first conversation as equals. Daniel groaned, rolling his sore shoulder. Well, that was fun. Zaira smirked. You are the first to ever call a fight with me fun. Daniel exhaled. So now what? Are we best friends or what? Zaira tilted her head. Perhaps. A pause. Then she looked at him, more serious now. You surprised me, Daniel Carter, your species surprised me. Daniel chuckled. We tend to do that. Zyra's red eyes gleamed. Yes, and that makes you dangerous. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Is that a bad thing? She considered his words carefully. Not if we are on the same side. Daniel nodded slowly. And are we? She extended her hand again, this time not as a warrior, but as a representative of her people. Yes, we are. Daniel took her hand. And in that moment, Earth and the Catharian Empire became something more than rivals. They became allies. The world reacts. The news broke within minutes. Earth enters a new era. Humanity gains its first alien ally. Daniel Carter, the man who fought for Earth's future. Catharian Empire declares humanity as equals. What comes next? Social media exploded. Some people cheered. Some debated whether Earth could trust the Catharians. But one thing was clear. The universe had just gotten a lot bigger. For the first time, humans were not just observers of the stars. They were part of them. A meeting among the stars. A week later, Daniel found himself on board a Catharian warship, standing before a council of alien leaders. Thyra stood beside him, her presence a silent shield. The Catharian warlord studied him, some with curiosity, some with irritation. Finally, one of them spoke. You are not the strongest species we have encountered. Daniel smirked. Yeah, I got that. Another warlord leaned forward. And yet, you survived. Zyra answered before Daniel could. He did more than survive. She turned to the council. He fought. He adapted. He earned my respect. Silence. Then the oldest warlord spoke. If General Zyra says this species is worthy, then we listen. A heavy pause. Then, with slow, deliberate movements, the warlords nodded. And just like that, humanity had a place among the stars. Not as subjects, not as prey, but as equals. The legend of Daniel Carter. Back on Earth, Daniel Carter became a name spoken in awe. Not just by humans, but by the Catharians, who told the story of the man who refused to bow. In bars and training camps across the galaxy, young warriors whispered his name. The human who stood against an empire. The fighter who made an alien general kneel. Some wanted to challenge him. Some wanted to fight beside him. And some were afraid. Because if one human could do this, what else were they capable of? A final conversation. As Daniel stood on the edge of the warship, looking down at Earth, Thyra approached. You changed everything, you know. Daniel sighed. Guess I did. She studied him. Do you regret it? He thought for a moment. Then he shook his head. No. She nodded approvingly. Good. Then, after a pause, she added, This is only the beginning. Daniel smirked. I was hoping you'd say that. Zyra glanced at him. Why? He stretched, rolling his sore shoulder. Because I think I'd like space. She chuckled. Then let me show you what's out there. Together, they turned toward the stars. And Daniel Carter, the man who had changed history, took his first steps into a much bigger universe.